Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Do we have any ladies? I see one Virginia here. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving weekend. A little bit stuffed still. So I want to tell you today to the lenders, this conversation is directly appropriate for lenders, and that's the bulk, if not all, of 2020. Based on the Sitzer-Burnett lawsuit that was finally approved last week, I want to say congratulations. There has really never been a chance like now for lenders who rely or work with realtors to shine such as now. Now, for the first time, there's a chance to be the choice and not engage in the chase. This is a time where you can actually stand out amongst your competition and with those realtor referral partners to be the go-to preferred lender when otherwise you had to fight for it. Now there's a chance to actually, through some strategies and techniques, guarantee realtors payment in this post-Sitzer settlement world. In addition, you can have agents guarantee their sellers that their homes will be seen by more people and can have safer, easier, faster closing. So that's a really big deal. We have a bunch of people here. I'll ask, does everyone or has everyone either based their careers or had a lot of success with realtors? I'm guessing yes. I mean, anyone just want to say, yeah, okay, we have maybe comments, but of course, right, people have. And that's been productive, but that is all in when realtors had a guarantee. So right now, realtors don't have a guarantee of payment when representing a buyer. There's no such thing, in fact, as a buyer's agent, just like there's no such thing as a black belt or a college graduate or an Olympian until they become that status. They have to earn it. So my name is Scott Forcino. I'm an associate broker with Real Brokerage out of the New York City metro area. I practiced law since 1992 in this field as a buyer's agent, buyer's lawyer, seller's lawyer, bank attorney, own a title company, underwritten by Old Republic and Fidelity. I've been a broker on my own, independent, but the EXP and now with Real Broker. I have a real good insight into the industry, and I was at one point admitted to federal court. That's not about me. That's just to give you an idea of why I'm interested in this topic and a strong background in networking and really what that means to the real estate industry as a whole. For those that just a tiny touch up, Sitzer-Burnett case was a class action commenced in 2019 and ended in 2023, which alleged violative practices of collusion, price fixing, anti-competitive practices, accused realtors and specifically NAR of inflating real estate commissions through one specific policy requirement, which was sellers had to pay a buyer's agent X%, which was negotiable, to put the property in MLS. Well, the part that was not negotiable was that something had to be offered. So sellers always, some of us on this call may have even sold, I have, you never had a chance to negotiate with the realtor who brought the buyer the commission that you will pay them or your listing agent will pay them if it's A, B, C. That practice was found violative of the 1938 Sherman Act, and it gave rise to $1.78 billion of liability, which was tripled in federal court scenario to $5.4 billion. NAR could not pay $5.4 billion. They didn't have it, and they resisted and they protested. They did not want to file bankruptcy. They said they would appeal. Now, I just want to give lenders a real quick understanding of what I believe, that everything that touches realtors touches lenders. I mean, they're the ones. I'm one of them. My dear old mom's one of them. They're out there in the ice and the snow, knocking on doors, really pushing deals, and lenders have been the beneficiary of all that business almost entirely one way, although there's anecdotal instances otherwise. The Department of Justice began its investigation in 2018. So for those people that are surprised by this news, the government started in 2018, the plaintiffs sued in 2019. Of course, COVID stopped everything, but here we are now, and there was a finding of collusion and price fixing. As a result, NAR said, we will settle. Instead of $5.4 billion, we want to pay $418 million. And there's two new rules. Specifically, those two rules were: one, NAR promised that MLSs everywhere would not have commission on the MLS. It was nothing that was overtly stated and agreed upon. And more odious was the requirement that buyers must sign an agreement on day one in order to see properties with that agent, whether it's exclusive or otherwise, and agree to pay the commission if they bought. Now, that is a complete departure from ever before. I've represented many buyers. In New York, it was never a requirement. About 36 states, there was never a requirement. People formed relationships with their agents. They trusted them. They saw a house, they closed. And it was also never a case that commission even had to be discussed, because commission was offered out in the MLS. So if I was showing a property for $300,000, I knew that it was 2% available to be paid out. That's not true any longer. In fact, it's so not true that in order to get a commission paid for by a seller, you have to contain that request in an offer. I want that green carpeting, I want the new roof, and please pay my commission. It was after the settlement a situation where realtors were calling around saying, hey, do you offer commission? Do you offer commission? Do you offer commission? That's called steering. That's not even allowed anymore. That's a term they use, canvassing. So putting the cart before the horse is asking a listing agent representing a seller, are they offering compensation even before you see the house? So now it's become so far from what we had. You as lenders got referrals from realtors that were guaranteed income. That's no longer the case. That's the problem. And there was such misinformation promulgated by all the sources. NAR specifically, NAR, I'm a member since 1997. NAR said they would appeal the decision in which they lost. It took the jury 150 minutes unanimously to said that NAR was liable for billions of dollars of damages, and the sellers get their commissions back. However, NAR could never appeal that verdict. There was never a court order. There was never a decision. So there's nothing to appeal. They never had the chance to question the standard the court used. The court used a very simple standard that if the policy was in place, it violated federal law. It's kind of like you can't win either way. And lastly, they couldn't appeal because it takes out of $5.4 billion, they needed to bond $5.4 billion. So the people who were never embracing this change, those were your referral partners. They cried for a year now until just last week when finally the settlement was approved. They blame lawyers, and they didn't jump on this new rule. So the problem with the new rules are they've never been tested. They have been only in place for a few months. I'll break that down. August 17th, the new rules went into place. It's not even December 17th. It's not even 4 months. And of those 4 months, I'm going to throw out 2 or 3 weeks between summer, getting back to school. Now we just entering the holiday season. Out of the 4-month period, once we get to the 17th, I'll say we're working about 2.5 months. It's too short a time period for to really give comment. There's been properties that went on the market, some went to contract, some closed. But I know that you all are hearing business as usual. It's the same thing, just more paper, just more dead trees, just more disclosure. And I'm telling you, I'm here to tell you, I'm pretty critical of this whole situation. That's not the truth. There is business as usual. Sellers are still paying buyers' agents when there's a deal to close, or at least that's arranged up to this point. And realtors are still making referrals to lenders across the country. However, there are a few factors, and this is really the most important thing I'll tell you, is this status quo cannot remain. A few reasons. One, the market, where anyone on this call, if they got a chance to pay 2% instead of 4% for the same services, Sally wants 2% from Century 200, Mary wants 4% from Coldwell Banker. If they're the same quality, if you believe they'll provide the same services, you'll go with the 2%. Because you're picking the realtor that can do both sides, because he or she should do those sides to get your deal done. So the market hasn't had the chance for sellers to wake up, so to speak, and realize their profit. There has not been companies yet that jumped in and say, we're 2%, never more, never more, never more. That hasn't happened. And it's really too short a time period to give this. I think it's going to take till the spring, till we enter into a new spring market, once we're in the middle of winter, to really see what happens come springtime and baseball season. Most importantly is in the last final approval stages last week, the Department of Justice asked the judge, hey, judge, is it okay if you give language in your order if you finally approve this, that says, hey, listen, NAR, we are not giving us our seal of approval, and you are not insulated from further investigation or enforcement and liability, and you're not safe. And even the agreement that we discussed just now, where a buyer has to sign a contract on day one and be responsible for that entire amount, we think that is restrictive. And that makes sense to me. Imagine if you're a seller, pick your name, Suzanne, you're a seller and you want to sell to the best buyers. Would you want to be limited to only those buyers that agree to pay commission to their agents? Wouldn't you just want to have everyone? So the government thinks that accommodation between the parties is also restrictive. So with the government clearly saying that we don't like your deal and nothing between two private parties, a bunch of sellers and NAR, protects you from the government's authority. We all know about that. Why are lenders comfortable with realtors that for the first time have to have an agreement signed day one? There's no history of that. And they have to prove their core competency to get that agreement signed, which they've never had to do. So I've been wondering since last year the impact on the industry, title companies, home inspectors, lenders that rely on realtors. To me, realtors, and I'm one of them, I haven't performed these services. We have an amazing opportunity now for lenders to step up and do two things. Train realtors. We have a training platform where educators and practitioners teach realtors how to demonstrate why they should get paid, and also to work specifically with listing agents. I know if we had 100 people on this call, there's been a real absence and a real lack of involvement with listing agents. And I'm going to tell you ways that are so important, not just me, but a training platform, and really alert people to the opportunity to work specifically with listing agents, which is an untapped place. So when I hear that lenders are listening or watching what's going on, and I think that they're still complacent because of the referrals they're getting or because realtors have not left the business yet. I mean, I just yesterday got my email that won $569 to be in my board of realtors for the 28th year. Out of the 1.5 million agents, keep in mind, NAR gave the statistic that 94 did 6 or 5 or fewer deals. So 5% did more than 5 deals. 5% did more than 5 deals. 49% did no deals. So when I see lenders chasing realtors around networking events, you don't know if they've done anything. And they're all competing for the same attention from the same non-producing realtor. Further, the listing agents are the gold. They have a client, you know for sure. If you type in my zip code 10804, you'll see a lot of properties for sale. They all have an agent on them. They are usually the better agents. They have signs around the neighborhood. They've been around a long time. And they are always going to be involved with at least 2 buyers. The buyer of the house and the seller is a buyer. So think about it. The lending industry has ignored this fantastic resource. They have never been part of listing presentations. They've never been part of strategy of how to make the house more marketable, how to make the house more affordable, how can they help listing agents go on ahead and be even more of a leader in the market? What can they say to attract and close more deals? To me, it's an enormous untapped resource that should be explored. I've been disappointed by lenders and title and home inspectors who are really not giving any thought to how their referral partners will survive, especially home inspectors, because if a buyer wants to avoid paying 1, 2, 2 or 3% on the home purchase, they're going to go right to the listing agent. If you had a listing agent representing you, would you think that listing agent would give the best home inspector they could to find out all the problems in the property? I mean, if you're the seller, I mean, I'd be like, what? I mean, I didn't want them to know that I'm not hiding any latent defects, but I don't need them to go through my furnace, which is 19 years old, with a fine-tooth comb. So there are many instances in which your referral pool and market is going to be reduced quite a bit. There is a solution, and the solution is that of aligning yourself with realtors, a chance to give them the reason why they can stay in the business, why they can demonstrate their value to buyers, how listing agents can control their market even more. I feel that with the Department of Justice immediately breathing down all of our necks, that their demand for decoupling is coming in the very, very short time. The plaintiffs in this case asked for an injunction, asking the judge way back 5 years ago, that they no longer allow, that the court no longer allows NAR to continue the requirement for sellers to pay buyer's agents as a condition of listing the property. That we never got to that because the deal settled. The government stated that they're not going to be satisfied with any continuation of seller paid commission. They feel that that is what they call professional interference, and when there are licensed professionals, even those fiduciaries such as we all are, that are working within an agreement, it could prejudice the seller or even the buyer and give them fewer options. It could cause higher prices and more transfer tax and higher insurance premiums and higher title insurance premiums just by merely the existence of a commission. Take, for example, a $300,000 house with a 4% commission. That's $12,000. That $300,000 house is really a $288,000 house. And that is another really interesting issue because the house was appraised at $300,000. Now there's still many questions where, is that a $288,000 house? Is what of that extra commission? I mean, is that tacked on the price? There are many different ways to handle that. So to show you another way where, and I have some expert trainers and practitioners who've been handling matters along these lines, think about the situation now where when a buyer says, sure, I'll sign that agreement, there's a few things. They may not have the money. They may say, I'll sign anything to get to that property. It's on the Atlantic Ocean. It's next door to my mom. I'll sign anything. So we begin the process, a mortgage application, a contract. We know that the house needs a down payment. We know that it needs to close closing costs. We know that reserves are required. But now there's a fourth thing, the commission. So your underwriters are not going to forget about that, I guarantee. And this is usually now it's a paid outside closing thing. And even if it's paid outside even if I should say sometimes the commission now is given to the title company to disperse. Even if that happens, it's still paid outside closing because it's not part of the mortgage proceeds, as I'm sure everyone agrees. So my question is, don't you think that you could be a great service to listing agents if you were able to work alongside them and make sure that the deal they're going to accept from a buyer's agent or from the buyer directly, there really is no snag, there's no holdup. That the way you're never supposed to buy a boat or a bunch of furniture. Oh, they bought a boat before the closing, that old joke. Well, this commission is a boat. This commission is furniture for $15,000 or boat $25,000. $1 million in a lot of parts of the country gets you an okay house, not a dream mansion. Let's call it a $600,000 house. 2.5% is $15,000. So it's still furniture. So right now, look at the situation. Listing agents are accepting a deal from a buyer's agent. Sure, you full price offer, 30-day close, everything's great buyer, great credit, income, assets. And no one knows whether the buyer actually has the funds to pay at closing. Now, that should not hold up a closing. But there are ways that I've come across where two smart realtors and some instructors gave that actual commission can become part of the deal. I, as a staunch supporter for the terms of the contract, always say, well, that shouldn't hold up a contract. The buyer and seller are in a deal. The realtor is outside the deal. That's correct. There is no connection between the seller and the realtor in the buyer's realtor in the new world that we live in. However, if there's a way, and there is, and you can impart this to your realtors, if there's a way to connect the buyer's commission and make it part of the transaction, then failure by the buyer to pay commission would mean they don't buy the house. So you can represent to listing agents, listen, I have a way that will guarantee you get paid. There will be a closing. And you could go to a buyer's agent. I can guarantee that you won't have to be on pins and needles during the whole closing if the buyer is going to bring you a bank check. That's going to be part of the deal. If they show up, it's dispersed by title company or bank attorney, and you're safer. These are techniques that can be done. Lenders cannot sit idly by anymore and hope for referrals or be realtors' best friends. You all fund the deals. You have to engage in this financial engineering, I call it. Something has to be done to put you at the forefront and give you real reasons why you're the only person that should be in the lives of a listing agent. Now, I mentioned how solid listing agents are, and they're usually the market leaders, and they have great relations with strong relations, and it's hard to break them up. However, if you give the reason that they will be paid on a guaranteed basis, and you give the reason that they could attract more traffic to their clients' listings and close quicker, safer, faster, all that, and even maybe have some fun with it, and gain that seller, because think about it, when they're listing their property, they may not be looking for a mortgage, they may not be looking for a house. You have time that you didn't otherwise have to create a relationship. So if you had that way, now you're better. You can break up a relationship between Sally, who's listing this property, and I've been working with, this company, ABC company, for all these years. Great. What are they doing for you? Are they making sure that the buyer can close? Are they making sure that that extra boat that they're signing up to pay? Think about it. Your underwriters never agreed to this. Buyers are now undertaking another course of action. They're taking another cost, I should say. They're paying more money that they didn't before. It seemed like we looked the other way and ignored the fact that the commission was baked in to the price, and we just financed it. Well, that's no longer the case. And I think that this seismic shift, this change in circumstances, this complete set of gears that we shifted can work out to lenders. Now, think about what happened to me. I went to bed on March 14th this year, 2024, and I knew that if I listed a property, I had to offer compensation. When I woke up, like a miracle, I was prohibited from offering compensation. So your strategy changed that night. When NAR made the deal, just so they could avoid bankruptcy, they put a condition on us that our own president said it's untenable. Untenable means impossible. They did something to us that they knew we could not perform. And I know this, for those who have never driven on the other side of the road, I've never driven the other side of the road. That seems hard. We never did it. Why do you think I'll be good at it? So I'm really recognizing the condition that the realtors are in. And I don't think lenders are. I mean, the lenders have been in this false sense of security. It's only since the summer. We just got past Thanksgiving. We're still getting referrals. It's business as usual. And I'm telling you, it's just not true. So action steps are necessary, and they're going to be so beneficial. I really believe that. I formed just a simple Facebook group called PrimeRealEstate.pro with some few hundred people who are collaborating on a daily basis. They're getting the news. They're getting, real-time data. They're experiencing training from some, real top pros. There is no cost, don't worry, especially the 2020 people. It's free to realtors and free to you. There's a chance to claim 50, 20, 100 realtors as your own designated realtors, where they're getting continuous contact from our team saying that Sally offered this from XYZ Bank, John from ABC Bank, gives them this training, which A, shows them that you want to create or enhance relations with them, and B, you want to collaborate. It always grinded my gears how, as much as I love realtors and I'm one of them, how they did not necessarily regard the other professions, especially attorneys, in the transaction as essential. I mean, the lenders now have the chance to really, really distinguish themselves. And I've been on talking about this since last year, and I've been poo-pooed. But now I feel vindicated because this settlement became effective. And the bad news for realtors is I think this is all for naught. I think that the Department of Justice, it's the United States government. Okay, I think they're daddy and they let these kids go play in the backyard. NAR and the 500,000 sellers. They made a deal. I mean, how clear could they make it when they say that this deal between you two private parties doesn't insulate you from further liability or investigation or enforcement? So if the lending community isn't all over that, I think they're crazy, because these referral agents with no history of success are going to be faced with something possibly worse than signing an agreement on day one, which means they're going to have to never expect commission to be paid by the seller. It's only going to be on the buyer. Now, think about it. Any realtor you've ever dealt with never did this. Now, the good news is the younger realtors or maybe the newer realtors are not ruined by bad habits. I predict, is going to be a huge shift from top producers to people who never had a shot. Now they do. Now they do. And those are the people that you can support. It gives everyone a new shot, so to speak. So I'm really, really excited about it. The problem I have is that of complacency, and I don't think this is being taught. I've attended trainings where I don't want to mention names, but the real estate companies are just saying, lock these buyers into deals and we'll deal with it later. And just putting people in a position where as the closing gets near, they're going to have to pay or it'll be a problem. Now, there's nothing more important that you could provide your realtor referral partners than them actually getting paid. And I'm going to tell you that these real estate companies will not sue for their own commission. Use this example. You're with Keller Williams, you start, I think, at 80%. The deal is $10,000. If a buyer is a bad guy and doesn't pay, or a poor person that doesn't pay, or just a crazy person that just doesn't take it seriously, you're going to come to closing. If it's not part of the transaction, which, as we just mentioned, it can be with the correct approach, if they stiff the buyer agent at the closing, the company will not sue. So imagine in your own companies, you close a deal and you don't get paid. That's what's going to happen here, because there's, in my view, I've been around litigation many, many years. There's no way that Keller Williams in somewhere in Kansas City is going to sue for $3,000. There's no way, not the money. Of course, it'll cost 10 times that amount. It's not even that. They don't want the bad press. They don't want the client to say they were terrible. Look at what jokers they were. They never called me back. They gave me a crummy deal. Also, there's depositions, there's motion practice, there's discovery demands. They could ask about your third grade teacher. I mean, you could be sitting in pre-trial conferences and eat up court days. It's a mess. So think about it. I read an article called Imperiled Industry. Every one of these realtors is working, risking getting paid at the mercy of a private person they'll never talk to again. And their company won't sue. And if they ever did, which they won't, you might get a settlement. I mean, and then when is that happening? I mean, realtors, they close a deal. Are they going to wait to get paid until 2027? Because that's what a lawsuit is. Any adjournment is 4 months, 3 months. Motion's nonsense. Come on. I mean, you're asking your referral partners to do such really, really, really important things with no experience and no support from their company. So imagine if just, you're the one person. I mean, like, look, you are Sophie, or you are, I'm sorry, I can't say Bill, and say, listen, work with me. I guarantee you get paid. There won't be a closing unless you get paid. And that is absolute novelty. It can't be done. It can't be done elsewhere. So that's a really, really exciting thing. The best way to handle, I think, this type of training is to just simply join a group, which we have, and invite, if you've ever invited anyone to a Facebook group, it could be about work, it could be about being a parent, it could be about skiing, it could be about gardening, it could be about anything. Just invite them into this community forum, and they have the opportunity, just simple invite, and our staff connects them. Bill, if you invite 14, they're the agents are yours. There's a chance for you to, I don't want to use the word, but claim or designate these agents as invited to a big fat group where we have constant training. I'm shocked that no one did this. I'm shocked that no one made a group, because I see these Facebook posts, but I don't see, I see a lot of comments, but ask yourself, maybe don't answer me. Think of the ignorance of the comments you're reading from these realtors. I mean, it's every day. And I'm okay with being on record saying it, because the owners of the companies and the leaders in the industry are struggling with, despite with the complete unaware situation, and also they're saying things that violate the code of ethics. People are outright saying, I won't show the property, or we got to stick together. Wait a minute, that's how we got here, sticking together. You can't stick together. This isn't some grassroots petition against the garbage dump. This is a professional trade organization that already violated federal law. So if you don't mind, I'll just keep pounding this drum. The NAR is in a crazy situation. The people that you know and love, that gave you business, that work together, that you respect, and they really have done a big job with all of us. They have a choice now, as of last week. Before they bit their first piece of turkey, they had a choice. Do I stick with my deal? Do I want to pay $418 million and not $5.4 billion? Do I stick with my deal? Do I continue to get an agreement signed and then show a property? Or do I change my behavior because the government says what you're doing is not okay? So I think that what's going to happen is NAR is going to stay with their deal, because we just made a deal last week, and they're going to wait until the Department of Justice, United States government, changes, I should say, directs them to take different steps. And when no longer sellers are allowed to pay, I think they'll go back to the settlement and say, hey, listen, the government said we can't pay. We have to make it just, you can't pay us anymore, and we're going to rely on this agreement. They're going to get rid of the agreement that was part of the deal. I mean, you're talking about very shaky ground. And if you have an entire organization that worked going right, they just kept going one direction, and now they're told they got to pivot. We pivoted overnight, March 14th to March 15th. Now there's more liability, there's more fines. What can NAR do except wait to see what happens and then pivot again? I've met thousands of agents in my life from all walks of life, many states. I don't think that they have the ability, we have the ability, after doing something that we believe was the correct way for years, for entire careers, to now, even with the proper guidance, just shift. I think that a lot of agents are going to leave, because if you're talking about half of the people did not do any deals, why are you sticking around when it just got harder? When 5% of the realtors did 95% of the deals. Those are NAR statistics. And think also on what NAR, let me say it this way. Think about what lenders have done. I mean, let me knock lenders for a minute. The coffee, the donuts, the lunch and learns, I get it. Mortgage at 101, not necessary. I mean, helping realtors, listing agents, get more clients, close more deals, sound smarter, have a resource such as a top-level lender like yourselves at a listing appointment, and other listing agents don't have anyone. They're just going on with their glossy photos and where they syndicate and all the regular stuff. That's a really fantastic opportunity right there. There's an opportunity that really has never happened before. And I'm curious as to, what you all think. That's a lot of information, but I really came to inform, show where realtors had a misapprehension, and tell people that, don't believe in business as usual. It's too short a period of time, and there's been a safety net. I mean, if sellers are paying, there's no problem. But the government says they don't want them to pay anymore. And I think that people are going to wise up, and instead of paying $40,000 on $1 million house, they're going to want to pay $20,000. So I'm curious, can we just open this up and hear what are our thoughts?
So I'm curious. I've been working with my realtor since before August, just bringing about the opportunity to be a team on this. I think it was a really good opportunity for lenders to be able to promote the value of the buyer agent, help promote the need for it. But when I am pre-qualifying a client, I take into account the funds that are going to be needed to pay that buyer agent agreement. And I explain to them that the seller has the option, just like with closing costs, to pay it, but I help them recognize how that makes a difference in their bottom line and the negotiating power. But I'm curious, because you brought up a few times that you think it's going to come to where the sellers can't pay it. And I know for most of my buyers, they can't either. So, I understand the concept. I don't agree necessarily, but I understand the concept of that. What is the real value of the property? But the value of a property is what people are willing to pay. And if people are willing to pay more to get their costs covered, then that's the value of the property. And as long as it's customary for the area, then I don't personally see a problem with it.
Forget about being customary. That's irrelevant. I mean, there was a trial, and that said that this conduct, this policy, violated federal law. So what you tell them know real well is that people got representation by financing it.
Always. It's based, that's underlyingly been the whole case the whole time. Just like closing costs being paid. They're financing it.
Right, but the closing costs don't exist pursuant to an agreement between.
Oh, I get it. I get the difference. So, and it's separate. I understand the difference, but what I'm curious about is first, how do you guarantee it? Because there's been other lenders. I talked to a lot of realtors about this, and how I'm helping the buyers understand that this is their fee for one of the professional services that is involved with them purchasing a home. Just like the attorney is a professional fee and the appraiser, so is the buyer's agent. But two things that you said interest me. One, that there's a way of guaranteeing that they get paid. And then two, that you think it's going to come to where the government cuts out even the ability, if I understood you correctly, where the seller can't pay it. Now they can't, because if it's written into the contract, then they're paying it. But what you saying, that you think that the government's going to come into place where they say sellers can't pay it?
Yes, definitely, because they're looking for complete decoupling, and that's
coupling. Okay, that's what I thought. Understood.
Yes, I'm just reading. What I see. They said it. Government said it all along. And just to go back and forth. Under Trump, the government was told stand down and don't pursue this. Under Biden, the government was back involved, and then there was a settlement between the government and NAR, and it was a really interesting choice. There's an appellate court 2-1 where the government said, "Oh, listen, we closed the deal, but closed does not mean can't be open like any door." And that kind of weird, right? If you close it, I would think it's closed, but government said, that's what we're dealing with. The government closed your application, and now it's back on. And we don't know, you probably heard there's an election, so we don't know what's going to happen in the new year. But at this point, I definitely think, I'm just reading, I mean, what do you think of the fact that the government asked the court, please put this in your court order, and the judge said no. So then after that, the government had to do a new kind of, they call it an objection, and say, please be advised that you do what you want. And it's in my platform. It's easy to see. It's all over the web, but you're not insulated. So I believe strongly that there won't be any more sellers' chance to pay. And the first thing you said was it's the financing. Now, also, sellers' concessions are not allowed to even pay for a buyer's commissions.
Oh,
right?
yeah, it's totally separate. Yeah. I
Right.
just break it down to my client because, if they have the agreement and it's 2.5%, then I'll say, okay, this is the amount of money you need to get to closing: down payment, closing cost, insurance, and buyer agent fee. But then some of those things are negotiated in the contract. In my area, almost always the seller's been agreeing to pay something, maybe not the whole amount that they're asking for, but something. So I just think it's going to limit first-time home buyers significantly, because on one hand, the government's saying, okay, we need to restrict these things. And I understand the concept of it, but practically speaking, the other one is saying we need to get more people in houses. We need to get more first-time home buyers in houses. We need to have people realize their dream and all American dream. So we have all these programs that are offering limited down through government programs, but at the same time, they're also adding an additional 3% cost, which is the bottom line of order 2.5 or whatever's negotiated, onto what the seller has to pay. So I think that if it is taken outside of the sellers being able to pay, I think that there'll be some creative things going on between the realtors and how they're presenting. Perhaps, okay, well, you're going to pay my 3%, but we can ask the seller to pay the full 6% towards your closing costs. Because the bottom line is the bottom line with most of these clients. And in my area, the bottom line dictates whether or not they can buy a house, because
Sure.
they don't have a whole lot of money to put down. So I
Right.
think there's going to be creativity along the lines, but
Well, keep in mind, you're mentioning two different branches of government. One is the Justice Department of Justice,
sure.
and that's America's law firm. And lawyers
Yes.
care about those programs, obviously.
Yes.
So the other part of the government's Department of Housing and Urban Development may say, sure, these are programs. But to answer your first question is, this is not my idea. I have smart educators, and this is something you all should know. It's not being held back. I'm offering it. You should come in, get a session, provide this session to your realtors so that they are empowered by you. Now, when I say that is, if a buyer buys the house and tries to not pay the commission, that can happen. But if there is a way to engage the parties or offer an arrangement within the contract where when you pay for your house, you must include the seller. The buyer's agent must be included in the deal. That means if they don't pay the buyer's agent, they're shorting the seller. That's kind of what we're doing. So the way we financed it all before? Well, now we're not financing. We're just putting two things in a pot, and there's language to make that happen. I mean, it's just, there are a few simple contract provisions, which now you all can look like stars, because right now every realtor is A, having no guarantee of commission at closing, and B, having no guarantee commission by their company. That is crazy to me. The independent contract agreement, a company asked me to join them. I won't mention their name. I said, can you show me which provision as a representation that this company will go to court to enforce? And there isn't one. So a company that's national that does not have any promise to their agents. They have 20-something thousand agents that they will fight for them because they never had to. Now you have to.
So I'm going to go in and learn about this, but right now the buyers are the buyer agent is putting it as part of the contract that seller agrees, sell the house for this, leave the couch, whatever, and pay 2.5% towards buyer agent commission. So what you're talking about is totally different than that.
Totally different from that, because the
Okay.
seller, because if you think about it, the government can't stop buyers paying for sellers' houses, but they can stop professionals from making deals which could prejudice the parties. Now, keep in mind, one more thing I'll say, this is for realtors. I'm sure you deal with people who are not realtors. They're just licensees, right? I mean, in New York State, you're a licensee, you have a real estate license, or if you, it's a choice to be a realtor, right? It's a copyright, it's an organization, it's a trade union, it's a lobby. You don't have to be a realtor. You don't have to live by the code of ethics either. So this is, in fact, I know a guy who has a own company and nobody's a realtor because doesn't want these rules. So
yeah, there's a lot of talk with the realtors in this community about whether or not they want to continue to, whether it's worth it to them.
it probably is,
go with.
except that's their, gateway to the MLS, which has been holding us hostage for all these years. And everyone has a dim view of NAR right now. I think it's deservedly so. So we're hoping that could be unlocked, because MLS is still a fantastic way, with the rules and I mean, you would want to have a client not know whether the house is available or not. Is it in contract? Is it available? Is it closed? Plus appraisers need the closing data. So but I've been in 2020 with Christine and Laura since the beginning. I'm one of the original people here. I love the organization. I met so many great people. I learned so much. What's been troubling me about this case is that whatever happens to realtors happens to lenders. And at first, no one's really paying attention. And then they kind of poo-pooed it. I still get laughed at every day. Business as usual. It is business as usual. I agree. It's and I wonder how, after a verdict on Halloween 2023, anyone was allowed to continue that unlawful practice. If you're polluting a river and you get stopped by authorities, how can you keep doing it? I don't understand how. And I said to someone a lot smarter than me, I said, if what we did was violated federal law, how we keep doing it? What stops us from getting sued again? And no one still didn't give me the answer. But I think the government's stepping in. And, this is only 500,000 sellers. This case is Sitzer. It's only 500,000 sellers in Missouri. It's not America. So NAR is America, from Alaska to Hawaii. So they said, this is what we're going to do. They did us wrong. They told us, without getting our permission, can you guys do this? Nope. We just said, you're going to do it. You're going to wake up so now, if you think about this, a seller that did not list their property before March 15th, now after March 15th, lists their property, they may want to offer a commission. I mean, there's a lot of good reasons why a buyer's agent should get a commission. Let's say you got a great buyer, and you know that if you work with this buyer's agent, you have a smooth deal because they're a great agent, like you've all come across. I'm the biggest buyer's agent fan there is. I believe that everyone has a position. I just think that they should be paid by someone who they represent and not by someone who they oppose. I never got that. I never understood why one party is paying for the representation of their contractual counterpart. It never made sense to me. You're paying someone to lowball you? And that happened. Right. And you folks never got into it because you provided your very, very important services. Without money, there's no deal. So are you satisfied? Can I ask anybody else what's on their mind and what they think and what they want to do with this?
Yeah, I got a quick question.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
By the way, Scott, I have been on like numerous calls over the last year, and this is by far the best one that I've been on.
Oh my goodness.
Informative. Thank you very much. My question is between, first off, benefiting the listing agent and also, benefiting our business. How can we best market to listing agents, but also kind of in that same vein, would it also be a benefit to us and the listing agent if we were also a licensed real estate agent?
That's going around, right? I hear that realtors LOs, and now I'm hearing this too. I mean, I guess that can't hurt because you speak the language, you may be better at it, and you also in the club, so you have access to the same information. But you know, the benefits I'm describing are, I mean, I'm one of them. And wouldn't it be great for me? I'm a listing agent. So wouldn't it be great if I had the third person? You know, when you're dealing with your family, they don't believe anything you say, but if you bring another guy in, oh, you know, exactly, right? So I bring you in and I said, this guy's a top finance pro. He thinks that we should not do 4 price reductions. He thinks it's better to offer closing costs or buy down the rate. If you buy down the rate, it will be the sexiest house going, right? We'll have an easier time for a buyer to close, lower payment, lower taxes. We don't have to do a sales concession. We don't have to rely on appraisal. We will have, I mean, imagine this. Imagine a listing that says, I know that a realtor shouldn't quote rates, but like 0.5 point or 3/4 of a point rate reduction. You can guarantee that because you know that if you put a permissible amount of 3, 4, 2 or 3%, it will lower. So whatever I don't know if the rate is 10. I mean, I think that there's so many ways between protecting listing agents and making them look good and securing the deal. And maybe if I'm the listing agent and I don't want to say to the buyer's agent, hey, are you sure they have that money for that? I don't want to have a problem here. I don't want to get our closing held up. You could be the bad guy. You're the finance pro. Hey, we want to make sure. And even if you don't use me as a bank, whoever underwrites this, you could be like a quality control person where you need the 4 things: reserves, down payment, closing costs. And now you just, since 2024, you now bought a boat. So now you have another burden, other obstacles, the underwriters. You could provide that professional insight and you're not asking for anything. You have I mean, realtors historically have blown lenders off. And it's not the lenders are the bad guy. Realtors are too embarrassed that they don't have the business. Oh, I just had 4 sellers. Lie. I mean, it's, I've heard it. And the coffee and the other things. Now you have an action step that at 5 o'clock, you get off this call with me right now, and you can you can pick up a call. I mean, whatever your zip code is, it's a person you may know personally. Jane Smith has this property. Wow. And if you know that a rate, I don't know what the rate is, so let's pretend it's 7 today. You know that if a seller pushes across the table, what, 3 or 4%, it might be down by 0.25%. I'm just making that up. So now that property can be marketed. I've asked at a lower rate. Sexy. I said to a listing agent not so long ago, what's the rate on that house? I knew they didn't know what I was talking about. But isn't it funny that a seller is the only one in the deal that can control the rate? Because they can say, I'm paying. No one can stop me. But think of the clunky nonsense. I hated that 3-2-1 thing. That means that a buyer or buyer's agent had to come up with this 3-2-1 from reading about it on Facebook, then had to ask across the table a listing agent who didn't know what they're talking about, ask a seller who didn't know what they're talking about, while competing against other buyers who didn't ask for anything or cash deals. I mean, that was clunky. You had 4 people not knowing what they're doing. They you know, date the rate, marry the house. Well, how's that relationship going now? Are they breaking up? Are they in divorce court? What happened? But these are the kind of strategies. And you know what? I'm not saying you have to do a perfect job. Right now, no one's doing anything with listing agents. And we wish that someone would come in and help us, because you could tell if let's say you're going to a listing presentation. I have my friend, this lender from ABC Bank. Can we get him on the call? Sure. He's going to give you some unique strategies that come with me alone. Well, I can make your house more visible to people with a lower rate. I can make it easier to buy, easier to qualify. You know, 6.75 is easier than 7. We have generate more, maybe a bidding war by letting him know that this house comes with a lower rate. How many sellers are doing this? None. How many sellers are paying down points? None. How many listing agents are asking for this? None. So, I mean, it's a fertile field, and it could be done in 20 minutes. And you know what? I want lenders to know this. Smart realtors, people who've been around. If you're a joker, you think you're being chased or bothered by lenders. We're colleagues. Realtors do one thing, we play one position, but lenders are funding the deal. And things have gotten tricky. This isn't, you know, no doc situation from many years ago. I think that the realtors should be treated like colleagues. We're in this together. There has to be collaboration. And to me, collaboration is really a wolf in sheep's clothing, because when you collaborate with realtors, your referral partners, you're actually beating your competition who's still saying, let's have coffee. Oh, my rate is, my program is. I mean, I don't know, who cares? If you have a good realtor, a good lender, they're going to have the programs, and people are smarter and smarter today. You know that. So think about this. Realtors have less and less ability to refer and guide buyers, right, than ever before. They have less and less. It's going to be less and less and less as they become more, in tune with what's up in lending, and they have all the information in the world on their phone. I think referrals are going to be more and more prized, and they're going to have to do things with not just I do a good job, but much more than the value they normally added, like these strategies.
Do you see a risk of being a licensed realtor and a mortgage broker?
No, not at all. I mean, I don't think you'll do the same deal, and it might make you. I mean, I think it's a great idea, because then you could get access to all the realtors, and now you're one of their brothers.
Well, really, my only thought is for those listing agents that are working with a buyer. They don't want to be a dual agent. They know that the buyer perhaps is going to have a hard time if they're going to have to pay a full 3% or 2%, whatever the typical buyer's agency is. And if a mortgage broker is already working for comp that in some situations is better than some realtors comp, we can work at a lower cost to be that buyer's agent. So let's say it's a $2,500 flat fee, as opposed to 2% of the overall purchase price.
I mean,
that's kind of where my mind goes.
I mean, if it's RESPA compliant, then why not? I guess maybe your broker may have an opinion on that. I don't know, but I think for marketing purposes, wouldn't it be better to wear a white hat and a black hat in networking?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know which is the white, which is the black, but
well, and for us as lenders, we're looking for referrals from buyer's agents. It's quite honestly, I mean, you said it yourself about the kind of the quality of the agent between listing agent and a buyer's agent. And it seems where every other lender in the world is going to get business. And, I've been in title and escrow, sold real estate. I mean, I personally like working with listing agents across the board. So if I could derive business just kind of working with people that I know are hardworking and I respect, as opposed to kind of this other class of real estate agent, that's where I'd much rather go to get business.
Of course. Well, a listing agent has a client. There's a listing. Buyer, it's a very short period of time. You have a buyer, they need a loan in a minute, and you have like a narrow window. And there are no more buyer's agents. There's no more buyer agents. You have to become one. You're not a buyer's agent until you have a signed piece of paper. And we haven't yet come across a situation where they say, wow, I got to sign this piece of paper, or I could just go call the phone number on the listing sign on the lawn. So we don't have buyer's agents. These people you wake up, see a property, 2% on MLS, chiseled in stone. It's gone. So now you have to become one. And that's hard. Yet there's a lot of reasons why people should pay. Another reason why people should just pay a buyer's agent is, hey, don't be cheap. You're selling a house. There's equity there. You didn't work for it. You just slept in the house. You changed a light bulb and you made money. So don't be, so cheap about it. Pay for services. But there are people who are not going to pay. And there are other people. See, I think the real problem is going to be in the following. The real problem, if the government outlaws sellers paying, is that sellers may really want to pay. Because let's say it's Wednesday before Thanksgiving, but you have an accepted offer, and your client says, hey, the seller says, hey, Scott, what's up with that deal? We haven't heard from Sunday. Oh, I'll call and find out. And they blow you off and they ghost you. Now your client's there on the weekend, the house is, and then I got to say, people calling in, is there an accepted offer? Yes, there's an accepted offer. With a realtor that a seller's paying, there's accountability, there's guardrails. There's, hey, you got this job. I'm going to call your broker. We're going to make a mess. a lot of rules, you're blowing me off. I can send emails, voicemails, all this stuff. If you're dealing with a retail buyer who is a flake, now what? So the real problem is going to be with a seller says, you know, I'm here since 2004. I got 400,000 of equity. I want to throw, you know, $20,000 at this. It's imaginary monopoly money anyway. I want someone I can talk to. Scott, call that person. There's no one to call now because you're not allowed to pay anybody. See, that's going to be a problem.
Hey, Scott, one last question. By the way, thank you very much. On the buy side, this is kind of where my head's going, and I don't know if big tech was behind a little bit of the lawsuit. I see it where like a TurboTax kind of took over the CPA industry in terms of like packages, right? So from a buyer standpoint, like will the Zillows, will the Redfins, will they have different level of services? Let's say you're an experienced buyer. You've already been through home inspections and all that. You can do all that on your own. Okay, you're going to pay this package. Let's say you're a first-time home buyer, right? You're gonna want the full-blown thing. Have a realtor. Okay, you pay $10,000 out of pocket. Do you think that this kind of changes the buyers, agents, and new companies will come out where and they'll pay the realtors less? And it'll be a big kind of corporation or a big company, and they'll have like buyer's agents going out there making offers.
Yeah, I do. And that already was a Redfin 20 years ago. And that model exists. People are doing it. It's people who want, just like BPOs, broker price appraising, they're running around all day doing $75 BPOs. Yes, that absolutely is already happening. People are talking about it. I mean, it's a little bit of the shakeout from this. Now we have a real reason to rely on the settlement because it just was finally approved last week. Those models are emerging. In fact, you want to hear the irony of all ironies? This is going to, like, I hope you're sitting down. Do you know that Sitzer, from the Sitzer-Burnett case, you know this? You're shaking your head. You're shaking your head, Suzanne.
It all comes down to making money.
I don't think it does. I just think it's both, but I hear you. So Suzanne will tell you.
You think that was thought afterwards? Oh, wow, we can even do this after.
But so let me say it. So Sitzer is that kind of broker you just met. $49 for a showing, $149 for negotiation. Google Sitzer and broker. That guy did this model. Now I don't believe he filed a case and it took his lawyer 1 million hours of work, and the law firm made $260 million for him to open up a real estate office. But it's the irony of ironies that the guy that blew up the industry started a flat fee company. That's crazy. And that model has emerged. And you know what? Why not? You know, there's a lot of things. I've done listings for 1%, and it never appealed to me with my lawyer background. Why would anyone pay? You saw how I termed it before, for the representation of the contractual counterpart. That happens in a divorce on a case by case, need by need basis, and it's really incremental, and it's really, you have to demonstrate what you need it for. In this case, just think about it. We had a blanket offer of compensation. Sellers were forced to deal with any body that brought a buyer. It could be a lunatic. It could be 2 days in the business. It could be someone from 19 counties away. It was terrible. You know, so we're in a much more, and you know, sellers, realtors use the word transparent. That's a lie too. No one was trying to be more transparent. Everyone got caught, and now they have to be transparent. So I invite everyone to take part. It's a Facebook group called primerealestate.pro, or I'll give you my numbers: 914-879-8411, 914-879-8411. Just text me. I'll send you the invite to the groups. You don't have to do any work. 914-879-8411. And in that group, you'll see so much. You'll see videos, and you'll have a place. Just press invite 10 times, 20 times. What's the worst thing that can happen? Your realtors will get invited. It gives you a reason to follow up with them. Hey, did you get my invite? Now you have it's education. It's the way that's going to help you comply and prosper. They got to comply. There are state auditors, and each office is maintaining. If you took out a buyer, they want to know, especially if it's a broker office lead, that you had an agreement. They don't want to get caught by whatever authorities it's going to be. So all of this is new. and none of it is good, but there's an opportunity now to provide incredible advantages to the people that work with you. I'm really excited. I thank Christine for, bringing me here to do this, and Laura too. Great ladies, taught me so much. I mean, it's a really interesting time. And if you don't capitalize on this new period, you're crazy, because the old ways didn't get anybody rich beyond all dreams of avarice and greed. And if you ever hear that old, I don't like it, it's a business expression. In Chinese, the character for crisis is also opportunity. So these realtors are in a crisis. They're asked to do something they never did. And there's no track record of success. So,
hey, Scott.
Yes, sir.
Real quick, can you repeat that Facebook page? And I see somebody commented in the chat. Repeat the number.
My phone number is 914-879-8411, 914-879-8411. And the group is primerealestate.pro. And just text me and you'll get a link. My team, my staff will be all over it. And why not start teaching these agents? Because it's going to, business is not going to happen in December. We're really into the new year already. So,
right.
So one of the things that I've come across, because I did go to each of the real estate agents off the broker offices in this area from the beginning, and I've spoken to many, but everybody's interpreting it a different way. Almost every broker is doing something different with those buyer agent agreements. It's amazing, because I went in, I met with, a couple of the NAR, local NAR group, and got some information, and I went and I realized I just needed to find out what they were doing first, because I was talking about what the law was stating as I understood it. And they were saying, oh, well, we're not doing that. We're putting 0% on the buyer agent agreement. We'll just deal with the amount that the seller's paying later, or different things like that. I'm going, okay.
Well, that's a good point. There was no uniformity. In fact,
no uniformity. And they don't want the uniformity, right? Because that's part of the cooperation between have the NAR people.
They don't want some uniform. So California had something like a 9-page agreement, and it used the word buyer twice. They found that agreement to be so agent-centric, all about the agents, and bound. And then I think the Attorney General of California said, no. So we're nowhere out of this. I can't say it for the 5th or 6th time. When the government says that deal we don't like, how do you think you're okay?
And it's open-ended. So they can retroactively go back to something that they wanted to, and it's open-ended for how the DOJ wants to proceed.
Yeah, and the Batten case, which is going on right now, it goes back to 1996, and this Sitzer case went back to 2015. Look, I can't possibly know it all. I read 137 pages the other night of the settlement and the approval. It's really something, and there's law professors weighing in. Of course, the government weighed in. We're not. Anyone that works with realtors is on absolute shaky ground, and they have to be involved. I know I said it over and over. There's such a great time to make friends, because we need it. We really, I'm one of them. We could use some smart outside influencers that want to help us control our market and our deals. I'm here for you. We'll do it all, whatever we can do. And anything will be better than we have. We have nothing. So now this kind of participation and these kind of efforts, just get on the phone, make some mistakes. You know what someone said to me? Here's how you be a good listing agent. First, you got to be a bad listing agent. So get on the phone with Zillow agents and just make friends and tell them you don't want a deal. You just see what could be done. What is the rate? Have they thought about any strategies? And they're not. They're putting the house in MLS and telling you to declutter. Decluttering is not enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night. I appreciate it all, guys.
Thank you, Scott.
Take care now. Thank you.